Oh boy, is there border news this week. Last weekend, FBI agents arrested the leader of a militia group that's been detaining migrants in southern New Mexico. And despite lawsuits to stop the president's emergency declaration, construction is expected to begin soon on a new border wall along New Mexico's part of the international boundary. Now, Otero County is demanding that the governor reopen the Customs and Border Patrol checkpoints that were closed last month. So that's the first item on the agenda for the Line Opinion panelists this week. Here to discuss this and more are Daniel Foley, former State House Minority Whip. Back with us for a second time, Crystal Ciarza. She's CEO of Ciarza Social Digital. Glad you're here. Stephanie Maez is back. She is Executive Director of Progress Now, New Mexico. We welcome back Adrian Carver, Executive Director of Equality, New Mexico. Let's start with the United Constitutional Patriots, guys. The FBI arrested their commander, Larry Mitchell Hopkins, on an old charge of being a felon in possession of a firearm. And Adrian, he's being held on that 2017 charge for what he did back then. But what is going on here? Should he have been arrested for what's going on at the border itself? You see what I mean? There were people saying this is kidnapping that's going on, what these people are doing. Are you expecting more charges here?
I'm not sure, but what I know is that this group, this vigilante group, they're a racist, xenophobic group of domestic terrorists, and what they have been doing down there, I don't know if there is going to be more charges, but what they have been doing down there is disgusting.
Right.
It is not reflective of the values that we hold here in New Mexico, and this whole crisis at the border, if we can call it that, is of the president's making. It's heartbreaking, and it's got to stop. And these vigilante groups and these domestic terrorist groups that are down there, trying to round people up who are just we're talking about refugees,
right?
And we're talking about people who are coming to try to experience the promise of what this country is, of this beautiful state. And it makes me so angry that people are getting away with these awful things. And anybody who associates with these vigilante groups, they're the same thing. They're also racist. They're also xenophobic. They're supporting domestic terrorists. And I was just thrown
domestic
back.
terrorists.
Yeah,
you go that far.
I would go that far, and I think that anybody who associates with them are the same thing. It was really unfortunate to see a candidate for the U.S. Senate down in a video associating with these groups. Gavin Clarkson. I put him in the same category.
Dan, Gavin has said he felt like he was misled down there, and he's somewhat, I think, almost something near an apology for actually doing this. But your sense of these groups, or this particular group, is, Sunland Park, they've been asked to leave. Federal agents have said, look, there's an idea here they could be impersonating federal agents. I mean, these are serious things you can't be doing, to people. And these are women and children mainly they're holding at gunpoint. Is this the way to do it?
No, of course not.
Yeah.
Were you coming to me to hope that I was going to defend these guys?
No.
Okay. I think anytime you get these, wackadoodles that want to load up and go down there. Now, the problem is you can't paint with a broad brush, right? I mean, there's clearly problems when you head down into the Boot Hill in New Mexico, where there's ranchers and farmers that are asking for help. And there's organizations that I think, to some extent, this is not one of them. Some of these organizations that are getting labeled militias are out there right now, and they're actually bringing water and food to immigrants that are trying to get across the border. They're trying to help them follow the process correctly. So, I think the whole, getting out there and thinking anybody's going to, say, hey, listen, going out there with a gun and pointing at a bunch of people and holding them is the right thing to do is absurd.
But these guys not fall under the idea of a well-regulated militia? There are folks out there that defend these kind of groups because of that. They feel like it's their American right to defend the soil in whatever way they feel like they need to.
Yeah, so I mean that's a very broad question, Gene. Is it a well-regulated militia? All I know is I saw the pictures of the guy that's in jail and where he lived. They don't look very well regulated to me. To me, it's and also remember, it's interesting. We can have these conversations, and remember, my rights stop when they infringe on your rights. So getting out there and saying, listen, we're going to protect our border. I think is really highlighting a greater issue that's occurring right now. And you know, I think to lay the crisis of the border at Donald Trump's feet, I think is unfair. I mean, we clearly have a crisis. I mean, even President Obama's Homeland Security Director said it is a crisis. There are unbelievable amounts. We're going to exceed 1 million undocumented immigrants coming into the country this year, which our infrastructure is not prepared to handle. Now, the answer to a broken system isn't to just open the gate and say run.
Let's see
Well, and it's also, thank you for that. And regardless of how you define crisis, especially in this context, I think the answer to the question as to who is responsible for addressing that crisis is very clear, and it's not the United Constitutional Patriots of whatever, of the galaxy. Like, this is completely out of control, and I think our Attorney General said it best. I think, you know, Hector Balderas said that the rule of law should be in the hands of trained law enforcement officials, not in the hands of armed vigilantes. And I am so grateful that the AG and that the governor intervened and that they put a stop to this. And sure, maybe it's, you know, the arrest is on a 2017 charge, but this gives, you know, this gives them an opportunity to, the FBI an opportunity to fully investigate what the heck is going on down there and, you know, to essentially triage the situation, because having 300 people, I believe, were detained, arrested,
a little bit more,
a little bit more on Tuesday. You know, these are women, these are children, these are, how terrifying would it be? I have an 11-year-old daughter. Could you know, I can't even imagine what these people must be experiencing.
One of the problems they mentioned is, and Crystal, pick up on this if you would too, that for these migrants, they don't delineate between uniforms. You know what I mean? They see someone with a uniform and a rifle telling them to sit down.
Absolutely.
They just do it. They don't realize these people are militia people. They're not regular federal agents. Do you know what I mean? That's the part that's got a lot of people kind of bugged out here, this impersonating of federal agents.
Well, I mean, it's so Dog the Bounty Hunter to like times 1,000, right? And they're almost taking the phrase of civilian arrest a little bit too far, and not by a little, but definitely a lot. And you're right. You know, when you look at perceptions and you look at the human right, you know, you see a person with an assault rifle in front of you saying that you can't pass. I understand if the fear and the rhetoric from the national conversation brought them to the point of, you know, of their violence, of where they are, to say that they should take action into their own hands. But there's probably a reason why these individuals probably weren't hired to work in Hidalgo County. They're probably not cleared to work for U.S. Customs or U.S. Border Patrol. They're extremely dangerous people that are using this front of what, you know, the organized militia, if you will. They're using that to not only play a part of the national conversation, but they're definitely using it for attention.
Adrian, interestingly, the leader that's been arrested and since assaulted in jail in Arturo County, his background includes impersonating a federal officer, as well as a couple of gun charges. Do you see what I mean here? This idea of impersonating federal officers, I'm still on this. It just seems to me you have to send a message if you're the federal government. You have to arrest these people and say, this is not going to stand. You cannot impersonate, you know, sworn-in federal officers. Is that not going far enough?
At this point, I don't trust this federal government to do anything correctly. But I think we have to remember that these people are refugees, that these people have rights. And I'm really glad to see leaders from southern New Mexico and now northern New Mexico, Albuquerque and Santa Fe are stepping up to the plate to make sure that when asylum seekers are coming through our state to their final destinations, to their sponsors, that they do have some support. You know, I'd like to see our leaders do more. You know, if we can get mobile showers to Coachella, we can get mobile showers to temporarily house people in our convention center or in other places. You know, we need to step closer to the plate and make sure that these people these refugees are supported as they're coming through our state.
Well, interestingly, the ACLU, blew the whistle on this after the Facebook video surfaced, and Executive Director Peter Simonson was in our studios all week speaking to the network programs. I grabbed him for a few minutes for a Facebook Live session. Here's a look at that conversation. What are the next steps for ACLU? What are you folks planning? I'm sure you're in a panic mode at the office right now. Or is there something you're going to be filing today? Is it something you can work with other law enforcement offices here in New Mexico? What's the next step?
So we're exploring multiple options right now, but certainly first and foremost our interest is in ensuring that federal, state, and local authorities are investigating and prosecuting these matters to the fullest extent. We want to make sure that these families are not, more families are not put in harm's way. And so we'll be meeting, to the degree that we can, we'll be meeting with those authorities to encourage as aggressive action as possible. And then down the road, we'll see how the story develops. We have other options that may be available to us as well.
It seems pretty clear that unless something happens here, there's a lot of copycat possibilities here. Do you know what I mean? If no one says anything, the federal government doesn't really do anything except, arrest the leader of this, it would appear that this is an okay thing to do for lots of folks out there. Is that part of your concern here, that this could grow?
Certainly that is a concern, and yet a related concern is that if the consequences for this activity are not severe enough, that it may be just enough to incite the anger of other folks who share similar sentiments to these vigilantes, that they would actually risk the consequences because they don't seem all that significant, and as a way of demonstrating their defiance to the government, go ahead and start organizing similar militia groups in other parts of the border. That is my key fear, and it's why our authorities need to take this so seriously, and they need to demonstrate that this kind of behavior, this kind of activity is absolutely unacceptable in the United States of America.
Right. What would be a more appropriate way to you to manage this situation? Otero County feels very stressed right now. Certainly on the political side, they feel very stressed right now. What's your suggestion? What's your thought about how we could alleviate some of this? We've got walls going up in New Mexico, in this county as well. Do you see what I mean? It's sort of a lot of things are coming to bear all at once down there. What's your thought on what's the best way to do this?
Well, I think I start from two places. One, clearly the answer is not to have private, heavily armed, untrained citizens enforcing federal laws. That's a deal breaker right there. But beyond that, I think we have to approach the question of immigration as the complex issue that it really is. There are multiple factors that are responsible for people coming across our border, and now that we may be seeing more people come across our border in New Mexico. The circumstances in their home countries that these people are fleeing are genuinely violent. We've interacted with, even represented many, many families who are experiencing legitimate violence that I think any of us as Americans would flee and try to provide safety for our own families. Others are coming to provide a better life for their families and for their children. We need to approach this from the complex standpoint that it truly demands. And I think that means not simply shutting off the possibility of asylum, as this administration has tried to do. Border walls, what they are doing right now is channeling people into the most remote parts of the desert. We know, I think we can all agree, that no border wall is going to stop the immigration flow. So we need a legitimate policy that gives people a legitimate chance to seek asylum in this country and to actually pursue a path to citizenship and become contributing members of our society.